Hello students, this video is for class 10th biology and today I am going to discuss the topic female reproductive system. This topic I have taken from the chapter 3, how do organisms reproduce. So let's get started. Female reproductive system in humans includes a pair of ovaries, a pair of oviducts which is also called as fallopian tube, a uterus, commonly it is called as womb, and a vagina. One by one we will discuss all these organs and their importance. All these organs of the reproductive system in female is found in the pelvic cavity of the body. So the first of all we'll talk about the ovaries. Ovaries are 2 in numbers and they are present in the pelvic region of the body, and they are almond shaped organs, and these are the primary sex organ present in the female, and they are the site of gamete formation. The female gamete is called ovum, and in the plural term it is called ova. The ovaries are also responsible for the production of female sex hormones, which are estrogen and progesterone. Now we will talk about the fallopian tube. Fallopian tube is in pair and it is 2 in number. It is thin tube like structure attached to the each side of uterus, and it is acts like a passage for the ovum to move towards uterus from the ovary. When the ovum released from the ovaries, it is taken up by the fimbriae of the fallopian tube, and fallopian tube is lined with the ciliated epithelium. Its internal surface has lots of cilia. That cilia helps in the movement of ovum, because unlike the sperm, ovum is non-motile cell. It cannot move by itself. So for the forward movement, the cilia present on the internal surface of the fallopian tube helps it. Now, fallopian tube is the site of fertilization. If the sperms are entered at the time of ovulation, and then the sperms get fused with the ovum in the fallopian tube. Now the next organ of female reproductive system is uterus. Uterus is a muscular pear-shaped hollow organ present in between both the ovaries in the pelvic area of the body, and this is the place where embryo developed into a baby. The development of baby takes place inside the uterus. It is also called as womb, and the wall of the uterus has 3 layers. The innermost layer is called as endometrium. Endometrium is the place where embryo implants, and the middle layer of the uterus wall is very thick and made by the smooth muscles called myometrium, and the opening of uterus is called cervix, and through which the baby pushes out at the time of delivery and birth. So uterus is highly muscular, and due to the contractions of the muscles present in the wall of uterus, the baby pushes out during the delivery. When the egg gets fertilized, then it moves forward into the uterus and gets implanted here. Now we will talk about the next part of the reproductive system of female, that is vagina. It is also called as birth canal, and after the uterus, the cervix opens into a muscular tube like structure. This is called vagina. It is the passage through which the baby pushes out from the uterus during the time of delivery, and It is the place where sperms get deposited during the sexual intercourse. Now we will talk about the reproductive or sexual cycle in female. The reproductive cycle in female is consists of 4 phases. The first one is follicular phase, second ovulatory, secretory or luteal phase is the third one, and the fourth is menstrual phase. All these phases are under the control of hormones and occurs in the cyclic manner each month. So human females are born with all the eggs they will ever have. In human females, whatever the eggs are being formed, they are formed itself in before the birth during the embryonic development in the mother womb, and but they are not mature enough. They are immature in condition, but after the puberty the eggs start to get mature, and during the puberty when the because of the stimulation of hormones, the free reproductive organs start to get mature and become functionalized. So at that time the eggs are also start to become mature and the reproductive cycle start. So first of all we'll talk about the follicular phase, the first phase of the reproductive cycle, and it starts with the onset of follicle stimulating hormone. This hormone is secreted from the pituitary gland of the female body. This hormone is very important, and it stimulates the follicles present in the ovary, and the follicle is the structure in which the ovum or egg develops and become mature. So because of the stimulation of follicle stimulating hormone, the follicle start to become grow and developed, and inside the follicle, which is also known as Graafian follicle, the egg start to become mature. Yeah, and there are 1 to 2 millions of follicles found in the female ovaries, but in 1 month, one ovum is developed in one follicle, and as the Graafian follicle develops and become mature, it starts to release a hormone called estrogen. That hormone is also known as female sex hormone and responsible for the secondary sexual character in the female body. The release of estrogen is very important. As the estrogen releases, it stimulates the endometrium of the uterus for the embryo implantation, and this phase is called as follicular phase, in which the follicles become mature, and inside the follicle the egg ovum also develops and become mature. Now the second phase is called as ovulatory phase. Here when the egg becomes mature, the Graafian follicle ruptures and releases ovum. This process is called as ovulation, and as the ovum releases from the ovary, it is taken up by the embryo of the oviduct, and the ovum moves upwards in the fallopian tube where the fertilization can take place. The ruptured follicle, Graafian follicle, develops into a new structure that is called corpus luteum. And corpus luteum is also a secretory in structure, and it secretes a new hormone that is called progesterone. The conversion of Graafian follicle into the corpus luteum and comes under the phase of secretory or luteal phase, and this process completes in the stimulation of a hormone that is called luteinizing hormone LH, that is also secreted from the pituitary. So when the LH or luteinizing hormone secreted from the pituitary, it stimulates the ruptured graphene follicle to develops and converts into corpus luteum. Corpus luteum secretes progesterone hormone, and progesterone is known as pregnancy hormone. If the ovum get fertilized inside the fallopian tube, then this progesterone prepares the uterus in case an embryo is implanted, and it causes the endometrium to thicken, filling with fluids and nutrients to nourish a potential embryo. So basically it prepares the endometrial wall of the uterus so that the fertilized egg in future it will get implanted in that endometrial wall. And as the embryo get implanted in the uterine wall in the endometrium, it needs nutrition, so it becomes so that the that's why the endometrial wall become thickened, and it starts to develop so many blood capillaries to nourish the embryo for the development. When the egg get fertilized, it is called as zygote, and it this process takes place inside the fallopian tube or oviduct. As the fertilization completes, then that zygote divides itself, and it is a single cell structure, and then it divides itself again and again and become a ball of many cells, and this time it is called as embryo. Then this embryo moves forward into the uterus, and it gets embedded on the wall of the uterus. That wall is called as endometrium, and this process is known as implantation. The embedding of embryo into the thick lining of uterus is known as implantation. As the embryo implants on the endometrial lining, a special tissue develops between the walls of the uterus and the embryo after implantation, and this special tissue is known as placenta. This placenta is for the exchange of materials between the embryo and the mother. A tube-like structure joins the fetus to the placenta of mother. In future, after some time, it is called as umbilical cord. So, from the placenta, a tube-like structure develops, and it joins the fetus to the placenta, and it is called umbilical cord. The time period between the fertilization and the birth of a baby is known as gestation. The average gestation period in human beings is about 40 weeks or 280 days. And after the complete development of baby, the baby gets pushed out from the uterus, and this process of birth is called as parturition. Baby needs so many things for the development, like it needs nutrients, oxygen, antibodies, vitamins, water, etc. So all these things get exchanged through the placenta, and the waste material like carbon dioxide, urea, and hormones, they also get exchanged through the placenta between the fetus and the mother. If ovum is not fertilized, the corpus luteum degenerates, and this phase is called as menstrual phase. Secretion of progesterone declines, that causes to degenerate the endometrium. If there is no fertilization, then the corpus luteum of the ovary, it get degenerates, and as the corpus luteum get degenerate, the progesterone, which is the pregnancy hormone, it also get decline, and as the progesterone declines, then the endometrial wall of the uterus, it also get degenerated because the embryo implantation didn't take place. Entire endometrial lining sheds off along with the blood, called as menstruation. So because the implantation doesn't take place, as the fertilization did did not happen. So the endometrial lining, which was very thick and networked with the blood capillaries, it sets off and comes in the previous condition, and because of the shedding of the entire endometrial lining of the uterus, it moves out through the vagina, and it comes along with the blood, and that is called menstruation. So menstruation shows that the fertilization didn't take place. Now we'll talk about the structure of ovum. Egg is much bigger than a sperm. If you have studied about the sperm, so you can compare that the egg and the ovum. Egg or ovum and the sperm is quite different from each other. Sperm is the motile cell gamete, but the ovum is the non-motile gamete, and it contains yolk as a food store, and it is quite bigger than the sperm, and it contains the nucleus, and it has three layers, which is called as the outermost layer is called corona radiata, and the middle one is known as zona pellucida, and the inner one is called vitelline membrane. Now this is the time for your assignment. Here are some questions and you have to find out the answer, and you have to write in your practice copy. The first question is, draw a label diagram of female reproductive system. Name the organ which provides nutrition to embryo. Where is it located? What is placenta? Mention its role during pregnancy. Write the function of follicle stimulating hormone. The third question is, which hormone is secreted by the pituitary to start the ovulation process? And the fourth question is, what is the attachment of embryo to the uterus called? Fifth is, where is the fertilization take place in human? So that's all for this video. Thank you.